What's up everyone, this is F.O.O.L and welcome back to another breakdown analysis video. In today's video we're going to be breaking down a song called Troublemaker from one of my favorite artists on Monstercat, F.O.O.L. So F.O.O.L is amongst many of the kind of, I want to consider old-timer Monstercat artists that I still like. I had a ranking system for myself before, but a lot of the artists that used to be in that ranking system don't release so much on Monstercat anymore, so it kind of changes with the times. I made my own top 5 list in the past, and now I don't even think I have like a top 5. I just have artists that when I see their songs or music, like I'll listen to it, and if I don't see their names, then there are other artists that are good as well on Monstercat. But that's besides the point. So F.O.O.L, just like a personal note for me, I've been a fan of F.O.O.L since I heard his first song on Monstercat, Keep On Rocking. I think I'd listened to some of his other releases on Tasty Network as well, because I believe that's where he started on the label Tasty Music. And some of his songs there were good, but when he came onto Monstercat, like that was when I really listened to his music. And for the longest time in the past, I didn't know he was half of Falcon Funk. That's another alias that he had with another producer. I'm not sure. I think the other producer might have passed away that he was working with on the project. I could be wrong, but I know he did revive the Falcon Funk projects now 2-3 years ago just for one song. But whether it be Falcon Funk or F.O.O.L, you could kind of tell the style of F.O.O.L's music. And in the past, he did a lot of electro house, which was contemporary to that time. But now F.O.O.L's electro house is a little bit different and still has his style, but a little more unique because it kind of mixes synthwave aspects with electro house. So that's just personally something I've been enjoying from his style, as well as his old dubstep electro songs and his glitch hop stuff under Falcon Funk. So this is Troublemaker. I'll break down the song, and again, for anyone that hasn't seen me do these type of videos, I'm an amateur producer. I'm not like an amazing producer, so this is just kind of like my breakdown and opinions of the song. I'm not an expert. Trust me, there are more expert producers that know way more technical stuff than me, but I just figured I'd share my opinion and what I hear in the song. So maybe you as a viewer listening to the song might not have heard it initially, but you might notice it now with me listening to it. So again, that's how the breakdown analysis works. And also, I'll be pausing and stopping the song throughout this whole video. So if you want to listen to the full song, you can either search the song up on YouTube, or I'll leave a link down in the description or in the comment section with the link to the song. You can just click there and listen to the full song, because the quality might not be amazing in this video, but if you want like a higher quality and just to listen to the whole song, you could do that. So anyways, with that being said, let's go into kind of my breakdown of the song Troublemaker. I have to say, in this song, some of the sounds that like got stuck in my head is this intro song. Sounds like a distorted like little kind of lead he has. It's a pretty cool lead. I mean, it got stuck in my head, and the amount of distortion really kind of sets the vibe for the tone of the song being kind of a more dirty synthwave electro house song. So just noticed that myself. I do like that transition. It had a little bit of percussion, and then after that, like it kind of did like a like a true transition, and then you hear kind of a either the same plucks or different pluck sound, but it's a lot fuller and it takes up more space in the mix. So you kind of know the intro's building up, which, as you've seen in my previous videos, this song doesn't have like the old style electro intro where it's like a kick and a snare and some percussion with some maybe lead or bass sound just playing for 15 or 30 seconds. This song actually starts more like a, I guess, a more untraditional style where you have kind of a synth sound kind of playing in the beginning with no percussion, kind of building an atmosphere, almost like just with like a couple plucks and setting the tone instead of just having the more mix friendly kick and snare structured style like that. So I really do like that vocal chop. I think it says "let go." I can't fully understand it myself, but that vocal chop also got really stuck in my head, and you just kind of notice like the plucks playing along, and then kind of setting the atmosphere with that vocal chop going on, and with some of the like percussion happening. The percussion almost sounds like almost like a theatrical kind of percussion, like really kind of dramatic and kind of big, almost like something you'd hear in like a score. Not to like the extent you would hear like that in like a trailer or something, but it does have that kind of more, I guess, flatter feel, but a little bigger. Like it's not like a traditional dubstep snare that you would hear. So I really do like that, and I do like the vocal chops pairing with the kind of darker tone plucks. That's a really nice touch. So if you guys noticed in this song, there wasn't really like a riser per se building up into the drop. Like it just kind of had the vocal chops kind of come in to add a little high end, and then it just had like a transition sound, and then it just kind of went into the drop. Whereas the other songs that we've analyzed, like Disco Dancer and some of the older 2012 progressive house song like the Longest Road remix, like you notice a lot of those songs had a lot of the white noise to kind of build up and bring that tension in. This song, I didn't really notice it building up with that much white noise. It kind of just built with the plucks, add the vocal chops, and then had that transition into this drop here where you feel like a bigger kick and kind of the bass plucks happening, where it's like a really dark feeling bass pluck with, I think, some type of atmosphere in the background that I could hear in the back. But as I listen to the song more, I'll confirm that. Ooh, that's a pretty interesting part. So you hear there was like a doo-doo-doo sound, like kind of at the end of the phrase, and the percussion's actually really smooth. You have the kick, you have the hi-hat, you have a snare, and then you had like a clap just now go, which is really nice. There is like an atmospheric sound, and then I think there is like a higher pitch sound that I think is playing along with the bass line notes, like whatever that progression or notation is. I think it's playing along with like a good amount of reverb, like set into the sounds to really make it nice and full. The low end has like really nice low end, a good separation between the kick and the sub and the bass. So overall, as you know, most of the Monstercats are really super clean songs, most of their mixes. But yeah, this is just a good example of just like a nice kind of difference when you're going for a more darker tone, focus on the pluck. type song and drop. So now the kind of lead arp is introduced, and then you have the full kind of bass sound on the bottom. Both of those sounds, the lead arp and the bass on the bottom, I would say both of those are kind of very traditional F.O.O.L sounds. If you've listened to most of his songs over the past, I don't know, 7 years, you could kind of tell that his sounds have a unique style and sound to them. And as an artist, if you're making music, you want to try and make sounds that are similar to that, or kind of create a style that's a little bit uniquely your own. Because as fun as it is, making music that's I don't want to say generic sounding, but traditional sounding to the genre. So let's just say you're making progressive house. Like, you can make like a more generic or typical progressive house song, but like me with F.O.O.L, if you can tell, like, just by listening to that sound, that it's a F.O.O.L sound versus a kind of like a generic house song, you want to go for a more unique sound to where people will notice your sound pretty much right off the bat, or within the first, I want to say, like 15-30 seconds of your song. Because once like you can hear it right off the bat, you'll be like, oh, that's a F.O.O.L song, like with this song, or oh, that's a song by this person. And like, I could tell by their style or this certain sound that they use. So when you are an artist, me included, I'm trying to find that kind of style and sound. You want to kind of create a certain sound that differs you from the more traditional sound. So when people listen to your music, they can kind of identify that song right off the bat. And if they really do like your style, then people will kind of gravitate towards your music because of your style. And I know certain artists change their style over time, which, that happens over time. People will evolve, you get into different genres. But if you still have like a sprinkle of your sound or a certain style, then usually people that know your music will be a little more generous to you switching your style. It's a real fine line to really try and find a balance, but if you can do it, you could be really good. Much like a lot of the Monstercat artists, like F.O.O.L here, he found that kind of fine line, I want to say, where he created his own kind of unique sound design to where in most genres of music, like, you can kind of tell it's a F.O.O.L song. So that's just my little rant on unique sound design and making a song unique. But overall, this drop is really good. You could tell the separation between the lead and the bass sound, and the percussion is really clean. That actually was a really nice kind of transition into continuing the drop. Kind of filters out the sounds a little bit, so it sounded like the sounds were almost put through like a high pass filter, where the mid and higher frequency sounds are still left in the mix. So he kind of cut out all the low frequencies just for a little bit and then brought everything back in. And if you guys didn't notice, there's also kind of the intro vocal chop thrown into the drop every once in a while. You kind of hear that vocal chop. So that's a very interesting aspect that I just listened to just now. I didn't realize that earlier. So that's a cool little addition to add. That was an interesting transition. There wasn't much transitioning the end of that second drop into this break section here, I believe. That was a lot more sudden than I realized. There wasn't like a double time percussion, like a snare playing or like a kick being left off, and then having the synths and stuff play and have some like other percussion like hi-hats play. So that was like a very quick transition. Um, for this song, it worked pretty well. Sometimes that doesn't work all that well, but if you can kind of match the, if you can find a good balance between a fast transition like that from your drop into the break, then it can work. For me, that doesn't work very well all the time because I struggle doing that, but for this song, that's pretty interesting that I didn't notice that earlier. So it can work, as you just saw, but yeah, that's good to know. I will mention in this break part, the lead that's playing. I believe it's a different sound from the drop and the first intro kind of lead sound. This sound sounds like a very um, reverbed effect, so there's a lot of reverb on the effect. There also is distortion, but it sounds like there's like a lot of reverb and maybe some delay because it sounds really wide and kind of distant. It's not really forefront, and it just sounds like, in layman's terms, it sounds like it has like a lot of echo to it. So um like it is not actually echoing, but it just sounds like not as dry. It sounds more like you're in a bigger room and you're hearing that lead sound play like in almost like a hall or something, and like they're playing that lead where there's a lot of like reverb and it doesn't sound like as forefront to you when you first hear it. It sounds like it's in a big space. So that's what I noticed with that lead sound. And then I think that's the same bass sound though from the beginning part and intro part. So so it's cool in that break section. There actually has the sub playing along with the notes because it felt really full on the low end with those plucks. It sounded like there was like a sub bass playing down there. But then after now, when it goes back into the kind of intro build up section, you notice like the sub kind of disappears, and then at least on the spectrogram, like the sub's not there, and then you kind of just hear the vocal chop and then like a higher pluck. So it kind of took out all the low end, and now there's just kind of the high end to eventually build up into the drop, I believe. Okay, this time I actually heard kind of like a kind of like a little bit of a riser. I didn't notice that in the first drop. Before the first drop, maybe it was there and I just wasn't paying attention enough. But this time it was more clearly heard, and I just feel like the build up before the second drop is like a little more noticeable as opposed to the first drop, because there wasn't like the sub bass playing. It was just like those, I guess, theatric drums or maybe toms playing, and there wasn't much low end, so it just kind of went from there, and there's already most of the frequencies and sounds were in that higher range, so then it just kind of dropped and the impact was bigger. But here, like, there was the sub playing in the break, and then it ended, and then like he transitioned from like the sub playing that kind of break section into kind of a build up where it was most on the high end. So I don't know, to me it was a little more apparent that this section was gonna build up and drop. So That's just my observation from that break section. But there was like a little bit of a riser along with the vocal chops and that higher pluck playing, and then transitioned and then dropped. Oh, that's interesting. So when it dropped, there was like a kind of like a sound playing, almost like a pad that played for a little bit, for maybe half of that first measure, and then it stopped. And then there was another high frequency sound that came in. It almost sounds like a glitch, like doo-doo. Like that just came in kind of to fill that high frequency range of as I guess as a higher sounding instrument, which is interesting because I didn't notice that in the first drop, but I noticed it more in the second drop. That's a very interesting kind of traded off sounds per se. Cool. So that part before this part of the drop basically had the higher end sound again playing along with the bass line. But what's interesting is I didn't hear that kind of initial pad sound that I did at the beginning of the second drop that played for a little bit in the background, which is interesting. Um, I guess because that high end sound kind of took the space of where that pad played last time with that high end, because there wasn't as much high end in the beginning of the drop, that maybe the sounds might have conflicted. So that's just interesting to know. But now it's kind of going back into that ARP lead with the bass line playing on the bottom, much like the first drop. Cool. So there were some vocal chops kind of mixed in to this previous part here, and it pretty much was like the same kind of structure as the first part of the drop, but I believe now from that part it transitioned into, I think this part is the outro part, which is very interesting because now there's like, it's really cinematic. It sounds like there's almost like a choir in there or some type of vocal-ish pad. I don't know if it's like, yeah, it sounds quite like a choir, almost like. I think he even has the ARP lead kind of distorted different. I don't know if it's the exact same sound as the one in the drop, but it sounds like either it's the same sound distorted differently or a different sound with distortion is playing like a different ARP with a choir playing, which is quite interesting. I knew it ended pretty epically, but I didn't realize when I've been listening to the song that it actually was a choir. And for me, I should know because I use choirs in most of my songs. That's just a sound I gravitated towards to when I first started producing. Initially, I thought it would be like a signature sound of mine and a signature style of mine. But also at the time, I want to say when I made Reaching Halo with Maison, which was around early 2014 or 2014, you wouldn't hear choir in a progressive house song. At least to this day, I haven't heard any from 2014 that had choir in a progressive house song quite like Reaching Halo. So at that time, it was a little more unique. But when I do hear choirs in more electronic songs or EDM songs, I do appreciate it and I do like it because I always like how choirs sound in an EDM song. So for me not to notice this section having a choir is quite odd, but I do appreciate it. As you could tell, it gives it a more cinematic, epic feeling with the toms playing and that art playing to outro the song. Cool. I actually like that outro section because it sounds like the speed or rate of the ARP was pretty fast. And then it sounded like towards the end, it almost started getting slower, like the rate of the ARP was getting slower. So I don't know if Fool played that on an actual like instrument, like an actual hardware synthesizer, or if that was a software synthesizer, because that actually sounded like, you changed the rate and like it sounded like it was getting slower while he was kind of automating the volume or a filter to kind of slowly and gradually phase out the sound to end the song. So yeah, that ARP, I'm not sure if that's like a hardware or a software synthesizer, because it sounded like the rate was starting to change, and sometimes with a hardware synthesizer you can get a more accurate kind of rate change. I think you can also do in software as well, but I noticed in like songs like Deadmau5 songs where he uses actual like hardware synthesizers, like when you change the rate, like like the ARP will kind of change pretty fast or gradually depending on how you turn the knob, how fast you turn the knob and stuff when you're recording. So that's just like a interesting thing to note. Overall, the song is really great. With this outro, as you guys notice, the typical electro house songs from the 2012 era, let's just go back to Disco Dancer. You notice how it had like a 15-second outro. This song did not have the typical 15-second, 30-second outro that an older electro house song had. So there's just like a difference in production and structure between the older 2012 electro song versus an electro house now in 2021. So it's just interesting to see the difference in electro sounds and just the difference in sounds in general. I will say the majority of these sounds, I would imagine now, are made in Serum. So some of the ARPs, some of the pads and stuff, because I know quite a few artists now use the third-party plugin called Serum to make their own sounds. If you don't know what Serum is, it's basically a synthesizer that you can kind of augment to make your own sounds. If you're a producer that's been around for a little while and you for some reason don't know Serum, it's a little bit, it's like a more advanced and I think a better version of Massive, where you can really go in there and change the wave shape, change the automation, change and automate different LFOs and oscillators and things like that. So basically, I do believe most of the sounds probably now are made in Serum, and he could have used a hardware synthesizer. I'm not sure about that though, but overall, this song, if I were to give it a rating, I'd give it like a good 9 out of 10. It's not the best Fool song, but right now it is catchy to me. I mean, it's still pretty high up there for me. Like Fool style is always, there's not really many Fool songs that dip below a 9 or an 8, but yeah, if you were to listen to this song Troublemaker versus the song Keep on Rocking, you could definitely tell the difference in style and just in structure for the electro house song. So overall, this is a really good song, and I hope you guys like this breakdown analysis video. Again, I'm not an expert in any of this. I just kind of want to give my own opinion and what I hear listening to the song. So if you guys do like this type of content from me, please leave a comment down in the comment section. with maybe suggestions on how I can improve these videos, and whether you like these type of videos or not. And hit a like if you like this video, subscribe if you like this kind of content. But for me, this is fun to do, even though I fumble and probably am gonna make a joke of myself, but it's okay. This was just like a fun exercise for me to break down the song and just have a different perspective. All right, have a good one, everyone. Peace.